This is CBC Here and Now.
We need to stop that bleeding, because if we lose any more registered nurses, we are going to have to shut down services.
The provinces and the nurses acknowledge they've hit the breaking point.
Change is needed now, but will patients end up on the losing end?
Area of low pressure sticks with us for a few days. That's going to keep the skies gray for a few of us.
A new gold mine is entering construction and Millertown is already seeing changes.
Really looking forward to the increased business and traffic and just overall financial stability in the area.
I'm Garrett Barry and I'll bring you that story coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening, welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We begin tonight with more changes in the energy sector. For years, we've known it as the CNLOPB. It's the board that regulates this province's offshore oil and gas industry. But in yet another sign of the shift away from fossil fuels, big changes are in store for the regulator. Terry Roberts reports.
This was the signing of the Atlantic Accord in 1986, a federal-provincial agreement to jointly manage offshore oil and gas. And that led to the creation of this, the Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Petroleum Board, tasked with regulating this new industry. Well, many years have passed and times have changed. There's a major shift underway from fossil fuels to renewable forms of energy. And today we learned that's prompted a major shakeup at the CNLOPB. First, there'll be a name change. The Offshore Petroleum Board will become the Offshore Energy Board. And secondly, there's an expanded mandate. In addition to regulating oil and gas, the new board will also regulate the development of offshore renewable forms of energy. We're talking wind generation and what they're calling clean hydrogen.
We really think that we can be the national leader when it comes to wind. And whether that wind, by the way, is for transmission, export transmission of energy, or whether it's for local development of hydrogen. Newfoundland and Labrador is well positioned because of our geography, because of our workforce, and because of our resources.
It's a major shift in policy for this province. In 2007, we passed laws preventing the development of wind energy in this province because we didn't want it to compete with Muskrat Falls. But now politicians here and in Ottawa are talking about regulatory changes to help attract investment into renewables, whether it's onshore or in the ocean. That's because wind power is one of the fastest growing renewable energy technology, and it's been said this province has great potential for wind energy development.
So this is basically the start of a new industry for Newfoundland and Labrador. So it's a good day.
And with clean hydrogen being touted as the future fuel for Europe, the race is on to meet that demand.
We have the resources and the proximity that will allow hydrogen to be developed, and we can be a world-class leader in the energy space.
As part of the board's shakeup, both levels of government have also committed to ending subsidies to oil and gas companies, including those that operate in the offshore, though no time frame for this was announced. Meanwhile, the creation of the new energy board comes at a watershed moment for the province's offshore oil industry. It's under increasing scrutiny in an era where global economies are scrambling to meet emissions targets, while at the same time trying to create good-paying jobs that are compatible with a green economy. And all this comes at a time when the fate of the massive Bay du Nord oil project remains uncertain and at the center of a heated debate, with federal environment and climate change minister Stephen Guilbeault expected to announce any day whether the Equinor-led project will be approved. I spoke with federal cabinet minister and Newfoundland MP Seamus O'Regan today about this quickly changing landscape and whether Bay du Nord has a future in this new approach to offshore development. He said, stay tuned. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
To other news now, the RCMP have confirmed 2 people in the Gander Bay area sent to hospital with gunshot wounds have died. The shooting happened in the early hours of Monday. Police arrived at the Harris Point home to find a man in his 30s and a woman in her 20s suffering gunshot wounds. The RCMP's Major Crimes Unit and forensic teams are investigating, and police say there is no threat to the public.
Millertown is getting ready to become a gateway to gold. The Marathon Gold mining project is getting closer to construction, and residents of the nearby community are hoping it will breathe new life into the region. The CBC's Garrett Barry reports.
You could call it a real estate boom. In the past month, 6 houses have sold, and the market is getting tight.
Yeah, right now there's not very many houses and properties for sale. Most of them have sold. Even in the past year, we've seen an increase in properties selling.
In a town this size, 6 is a lot.
I mean, when you're less than 100 people, yeah, any two families that come in, it's a nice change.
And maybe an early sign of what's to come.
I know of two families here in town now that have just come home because of the marathon opportunities and hoping to get on with them when everything starts up.
The town is starting to buzz. Construction is set to start on Marathon Gold's Valentine Lake mining project, and Millertown thinks it's perfectly positioned.
The last stop before you hit the dirt road to the site, or the first stop after you come off the dirt road, it makes a perfect stopping place and to get out and stretch your legs and grab a snack.
At the local gas bar, they're hoping to capitalize on that traffic with power tools, blades, saws.
So we're making some renovations to accommodate for the upcoming traffic and boom to the area.
London says everyone's looking for a big boost.
Our community, our store, we need this. This is something that if it wasn't in the pipeline, you know, how much longer can you carry on?
Marathon Gold will be building an accommodations camp on site, so most of the workers will be living there, not here. Still, the mayor hopes there's a couple of families with connections to this community that will be willing to move back home.
The key is longevity.
Given the life of our mine, you know, it's up to 17 years now with the construction phase and the cleanup phase, and I expect longer when we come up with more exploration results. But that's a reason to move if you want a full-time job for that kind of period.
But before that, they'll need somewhere to stay. Right now, the community has some nightly boarding, but no apartments to rent and no lots to build on.
We're working on it. We have submitted a town plan to the government, and we're hoping to extend our boundary and open up some more options.
All of a sudden, Millertown needs to get ready to grow. Garrett Perry, CBC News, Millertown.
Well, it should be no surprise that for the fourth month in a row, the West Coast saw above normal precipitation through the month of March. And after last night's snow, Corner Brook, in fact, has seen over 500 centimeters of snow this year. And those of you in southeastern Labrador, no surprise for you either. But as far as those temperatures go, they finally returned to normal in Labrador after about 2 months of cold temperatures, and St. John's saw a temperature about 0.7 degrees above normal through the month of March. So we are seeing those temperatures even today around where we should be sitting this time of the year. 6 degrees in Bonavista was the afternoon high today, and then those temperatures up across Labrador as well, in and around normal. Happy Valley Goose Bay is sitting around 1 degree today. Taking a look at the winds though, windy afternoon for some areas. Right now we're seeing those sustained winds about 44 kilometers per hour in Twillingate. Factor in those wind gusts more like 54 kilometers per hour. And as we head through the night tonight, those winds are going to ramp up yet again with those gusts near about 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. That will continue through a good chunk of tomorrow, and then eventually we'll see those winds ease, but I'll have the full forecast coming up.
Thank you, Ashley. Well, nurses, the province and health authorities are wrapping up 2 days of talks about how to solve what's being described as a crisis in nursing. The pandemic has put an extra burden on healthcare staff. Nurses have suggestions, but it may end up shifting the burden to patients. Here and Now's Peter Cowan is in our newsroom tonight. So Peter, what's the concern?
Well, Anthony, the Nurses Union says 90% of nurses are feeling burned out. Some are thinking of quitting, and there are hundreds of empty positions. Today, everyone agreed it's a problem that needs to be solved.
It was a problem before the pandemic, but with dozens of COVID patients in hospital, hundreds of healthcare workers out sick, the shortage of nurses has only gotten worse over the last 2 years, and nurses are quitting.
We need to stop that bleeding, because if we lose any more registered nurses, we are going to have to shut down services. We cannot keep going on the backs of registered nurses and other healthcare providers. The mandatory overtime, the 24-hour shifts is increasing every single day. and we cannot sustain that.
The province agrees there's a problem. The 2-day huddle with nurses was to find a fix for this summer to give nurses time off, while longer-term plans to recruit and retain nurses is put into place.
I've seen nurses not be able to book vacation. I've seen them crying because they can't book for their son's wedding a year from now. Those are unacceptable positions for a professional to be in, and so we want to work with them. We're listening.
Giving nurses time to recharge may mean longer wait lists for patients. One of the options being considered is shutting down more operating rooms this summer, which could mean longer waits for elective surgeries. COVID and the cyber attack have already delayed thousands of procedures, and the opposition says making people wait even longer isn't viable.
Access to surgery is too important for people. This is life-altering, it's life-changing, life-saving. You have to have that access. So there has to be a balance here in how you do it.
The health minister insists urgent and emergency surgeries will still happen.
We need to preserve the workforce we have, stop the bleeding, deal with that, and then we can go on to address backlog and bigger issues.
So at a time when the province is considering doing fewer surgeries, the federal government is offering up millions of dollars to do the opposite, to clear the backload from COVID shutdowns. The health minister said today he needs more details from the federal government about just how that money can be used and whether that might avoid some summer shutdowns. Reporting live in the newsroom, I'm Peter Cowan for Here and Now.
Well, federal and provincial budgets will be released on Thursday. One big issue for many people is the cost of living. The provincial finance minister talked about that today.
There are things that we can do to help put money in the pockets of people, and we'll see what we can do in the budget come Thursday to support people, because we do know that the cost of living is a concern, that people are finding the pinch because of some of the challenges that we're finding, around the world.
The province continues to run a deficit, a $595 million deficit, according to the last fiscal update. And Cody says that influences all decisions. Meanwhile, the opposition is offering up ideas to save residents money.
We're talking about some initiatives around home heat rebate programs. We're talking about reducing taxes in some venues there to offset the additional cost to people. We're talking about lowering the gas tax itself. We're also talking about taking the tax off fuels and the carbon tax itself. Having some things happen there that obviously reduce the cost of living and the cost of goods and services that people have to increase because of the cost of transportation.
Well, just over 7 years after implementing a provincial 911 service, new legislation will dissolve the current 911 independent not-for-profit corporation and roll it all into the Department of Justice. Justice Minister John Hogan made the announcement today at Confederation Building. The department has been mandated to upgrade the system and provide the next generation of the 911 service, including using new technology. The new system won't be ready until 2025, and that's pending CRTC approval. Now, as for the monthly 75-cent fee charged to phone users, that is still going to be collected.
Part of the legislation, the old legislation and the new legislation, that a fee can be collected for these services. We'll review that fee. We're not sure exactly how much the next generation 911 program is going to cost. So when the money does come in, we'll evaluate it. We'll work with CRTC to see what the cost is going to be. If the fee is too much, we'll look at it. If it's not enough, we'll look at it. But that fee is earmarked for those programs and those services, and we'll continue to look at it as we go forward.
Now, the opposition is taking issue with the change in this legislation. The province-wide 911 service had been a recommendation from a Liberal hired consultant. The PC's Helen Conway-Ottenheimer says the people of the province should be very concerned about this change.
Now government decides for some reason to bring in this entity, the operations of the 911 system into core government. So we're concerned about the fact that this money that has been generated from the current existing board, now it's going to be in the general revenue, which means that it will be competing with other priorities of government.
Two stones perfectly thrown.
Well, Team Gaju continues to rack up the wins at the Curling World Championships in Las Vegas. Team Canada beat Italy 10-4 to remain undefeated in all 5 games, the only team in the international event that has yet to lose a match. The St. John's-based rink is currently on the pebbled ice as we speak, with Canada taking on Team Germany.
Pretty nice evening out there right now. We saw some drizzle for a good chunk of the day. Unfortunately, these gray skies are going to stick around for a few days, but I'll have the full forecast when I come back.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
For many of us, this isn't what you want to see in your driveway on the 5th of April, but this is what Corner Brook woke up to. Parts of the West Coast saw about 10 to 15 centimeters of snow today. even more in some of the higher elevations.
Wow. And of course, with the snow comes snow shoveling. Just a typical spring day in Newfoundland, Ashley. Snow blanketed Corner Brook. They're used to it, but there are benefits.
Yep. Snow might bring shoveling, but it also brings some sports. So Marble Mountain will be open today.
I'm sure that will be good news for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Wow, it looks really, really wintry there yesterday.
Yeah, lots of snow.
Yeah, and how much snow came down yesterday?
Well, it looks like somewhere between 10 to 20 centimeters fell for parts of the west coast, but for the southwest, not so much. Let's take a look at those numbers. Looks like the rain snow line set up around the Cadre Valley. Anything south of that fell as rain. But these are some of the snowfall totals that were reported. 18 centimeters in Grand Falls, Windsor, Corner Brook, 16, like I said. Gander saw about 9 centimeters of snow, and then a lot less for Deer Lake, about 5 centimeters. But the other thing, if you were up last night at some point, certainly around 10, 11 o'clock at night, the rain, it was just coming down last night. 31 millimeters of rain was recorded in St. John's. Bay Despair, 29 millimeters. Winterland, about 25 millimeters. And Cape Race, you recorded 22 millimeters. So certainly seeing those rainfall warnings come to fruition. And the reason for that was that area of low pressure. Now, that has moved offshore now, but we are seeing those onshore winds. Lots of cloud cover across a good chunk of the province. And this area of low pressure, unfortunately, is going to stick with us. This is the pattern for this week, right through to Friday. Eventually, that area of low pressure will pull off, but we're going to see these winds continue to be onshore. This area of high pressure will eventually move in as we head through the weekend, again, keeping those winds generally onshore. Then we watch our next system move in. This will be an area of low pressure as we get into Saturday. Note those winds shifting. That's going to bring in some warmer temperatures, definitely as we head into Sunday, and then eventually that area of low pressure going to be right back in the same spot next week as it is this week. So we're going to get back into that onshore pattern. Temperatures today, though. Morning, 8, 9 o'clock this morning for St. John's, we're hovering around the 0 degree mark, and then note that wind shift to northwesterlies and then eventually westerlies. Those temperatures warmed up. About 5 degrees is where we sat for a good chunk of the afternoon today. And taking a look at the live shot over the harbor, a beautiful evening, some of that sun peeking out as well, but still definitely a chill in the air, feeling more like 0. And if we take a look at those wind chill values across the province, about -7 is what it's feeling like in Corner Brook, and then up across Labrador, minus single digits, except in Lab City, feeling more like -13 right now. So taking a look at the satellite and radar, we do have some showers that are working their way across the Avalon, and that rotation of that area of low pressure. We're going to continue to see that potential for some flurries and or showers for a good chunk of the night. Tonight temperatures will dip down to about 0 or -2, and then those winds are going to ramp up again. So we're looking at those westerlies about 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. As you head towards Labrador, temperatures will be hovering just barely below 0, except in the west, again, down to about -11. But the good news is your winds will ease as we head through the night. Now, taking a look at the future tracker, those potential for some flurries will stick around for most of the night tonight and then even into the afternoon tomorrow. That area of low pressure will eventually pull off, but skies will stay gray for the most part. Maybe a few peaks of sun down for the southwest and maybe extreme southern areas of the province, but overall we are looking at unsettled conditions. A few showers certainly possible as well as the temperatures start to climb up just a little bit through the day. So we're sitting between 2 to 4 degrees for most of eastern Newfoundland. Those winds will stay brisk again, between 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. The more, really, the potential for showers or flurries will stick towards the coast. Going to keep that potential for some sunshine in there for you for Harbour Breton, 4 degrees, but generally gray for the west coast with showers or flurries through the day. Same thing for the northern peninsula and southeastern Labrador. Winds for you will be out of the north between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour, and then the rest of the big land looking at those temperatures near or a few degrees below 0 for Lab City at -3. So that's tomorrow's forecast. Like I said, not a whole lot of change, but there is a warm up as we head towards the weekend. I'll have those details coming up.
Well, these Filipinos just arrived in St. John's, and early tomorrow morning they're leaving to work in a fish plant People born in this province don't seem to want to work in fish plants, and actually we don't have a lot of people to do a lot of jobs. That story coming up. Welcome back. Well, people living in Hickman's Harbour will soon see quite a few fresh new faces this crab season. A number of Filipino workers have arrived in St. John's from Taiwan to fill jobs at a processing plant. Well, finding local workers for well-paying jobs in fish plants seems just about impossible these days, but these foreign workers seem keen and excited. Have a look. So you have a whole bunch of people from the Philippines who are coming here via Taiwan?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
This is the group that we have here today, so I'm very pleased that they're able to meet you and meet Newfoundland and Labrador for the first time. The fishery has been, a big problem. Facing labor shortages in various plants throughout the province. In particular, we're doing work for the crab season. We have a plant located in Hickman's Harbour that reached out to us and needed help, and we bring them in under a program, a federal immigration program, and they arrived last evening, or I should say early this morning. The employer is very excited. They have a lot of work. The crab quota is going to require their assistance, and I think you're going to see a lot of other plants with temporary workers coming this year. And again, it's not to take jobs from local people. There's jobs that they just can't fill.
Right.
You know, we're always looking to our local people, and anybody wants a job, we have them. But we're always struggling to fill those positions. So we have to revert to these programs to find solutions.
Is that because people, who are born here don't want to work in fish plants, or is it because there just aren't people in that working age demographic? Like what?
Well, I think, we have, if you look at the population of our province, and if you look at the statistics of what have gone on in the, the number of people having children, the province has even quoted the number of children in school. The enrollment is low, especially outside of St. John's. And I think that's been just the roller coaster we're going on. And Canada in general and other provinces are facing the same thing. We have an aging population. People live longer. So as a result of that, these positions are seasonal. So some of the current programs to bring in these workers are not in line with the requirements. And I do anticipate this problem is going to be one that continues to develop. I did see yesterday that the federal government and Service Canada made changes, announcements, and I think they're going to have significant impact that are positive for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador and for various sectors, including the fishery.
All right, so let's meet some of the people that Wanda was just telling us about. They're all in this room, as you can see, gathered around this table. And let's start with this young man right here, Carlito. So Carlito, why are you coming to Canada?
So we came here in Canada to work in a seafood factory. As a seafood preparer.
Okay. Do you have any experience preparing crab? Because that's what I think you're processing.
Well, I don't have experience of any fish, but in Taiwan we work in a factory where we are in the production area. So I think slightly I have an experience in terms of production.
So working on a production line.
Yeah, production line. Yes.
Are you nervous? I don't mean about being on TV. I mean about the new job. About the new job.
I'm sorry.
Are you nervous about the new job?
I'm nervous about this interview. Well, I'm. It's not all about I'm nervous, but I'm more excited because it is my first time here to be here in Canada, and I believe that Canada will be a greener pasture for us.
Really?
To provide for our family.
What are you looking forward to the most?
Looking forward to stay longer here in Canada.
Right, because this is you have a work permit to work for a few months, right?
Yes, sir.
And you might have the opportunity to stay here.
Yes, sir. If we will be given a chance to stay here in Canada for a long time, it's best for us.
In case you don't know, the Philippines, there are many Filipinos have a remittance economy where Filipinos move to other countries, they work very, very hard, and they send a big percentage of their income back home to help their families. So let me ask you about your situation and your family back in the Philippines.
The situation of my family is the Philippines is just a little of money. That's why I go to Canada to big opportunity for me and my family. If I'm here to get a PR card, I came with my son to come here. That's a big opportunity for me.
Right. So your son is still not here, right?
Yes. That's why I get the opportunity for here. That's just a little almost 4 months here.
Yeah.
To working the fisherman.
Yeah. How old's your son?
In the Philippines.
Yeah. How old is he?
How old?
Yeah.
6 years old.
6 years old.
Yes.
You must miss him.
I'm a single mom. That's why I came here with her to working.
Are you ready for your training?
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
I'm so excited, sir.
You're excited?
Yes, sir.
Look at this, a big smile on your face.
Yes, sir. By the way, sir, this is the big opportunity for us to come here in Canada to work as a seafood preparer. Then we can do all this in for the sake of our family in the Philippines.
As Garrett Berry reported earlier in the show, Millertown is bracing for a mining boom. Marathon Gold's Valentine Lake project passed a crucial environmental assessment last month, bringing it one step closer to construction. The company is promising to hire about 400 people and to operate the mine for more than a decade.
These
Barrens were part of a tropical sea, which most people don't know.
Coming up a little later, from the tropics to the windy coastline of the Northern Peninsula.
It's a habitat totally unique to this province, why it needs our protection just ahead. Apologies about that technical glitch before the break. We have more now on Millertown bracing for a mining boom.
Valentine Lake, we've just received our provincial environmental approvals. It's a major milestone for the development of the project. And we're still exploring out there, and we're really doing a lot of the development work, more of the engineering type exploration, and setting up to really start the early works of the construction later on this year. Early next year, we'll start bringing in a lot more contractors, also in the construction phase. But there'll be big numbers coming in, and there'll be, we're targeting provincial employment with our contractors, and we're pushing down hard on our contractors to achieve that. And so up until sort of the end of, or mid to end of 24, our numbers will be up around the 400 to 500 people employed, but predominantly with contractors. And then mid-24 through to the long term, those numbers will stay the same, but they'll shift over to Marathon employees and we get into the operating phase. I hope it has a significant positive effect. We're deliberately targeting support to Millertown, the local service station convenience store. We've put a little bit of investment in there to help them fill up their bulk fuel tanks so that they've got fuel to sell as people passing by. We try and buy some of our fuel there when our people are going in and out on their trucks. We're using, we have a yard in Millertown that we're using as a bit of a staging location, so we'll have our people go through, we'll pick up people from in busing, our crews into the site, we'll pick them up. So on that 2-week cycle of shift change, there'll be quite a lot more traffic through the town, and so those stores will benefit that, and then I hope some of our employees choose to move there, choose to live there. There's opportunity there. Similar with Buckens across the Beothic Lake. We've been doing exploration for the last 10 years on site, and so we've had a bit of traffic going past Millertown, and with the exploration crews and the geologists, we've managed to maintain a healthy, productive relationship. We have monthly calls with all the mayors in our 6 towns, and I was actually in Millertown myself on Wednesday night. We visited the mayor of Millertown and Buckens, and we heard, we get their feedback and we react to their feedback, and so far I think we've got a good working relationship, and any particular issue arises, we're definitely going to be on top of it to maintain that good working relationship.
Well, Long's Brea, the endangered plant, has deep roots in this province. It's small, low to the ground, and very determined, and you'll find it sprinkled along the limestone barrens, very cold, windy coastal area.
Yes, a number of rare plants grow there, and this week on Habitats, host Andy Bowman heads to Flowers Cove on the Northern Peninsula to learn more about the limestone barrens and meet some of the women passionate about protecting it.
6 kilometers. When you think about that, of the whole wide world, it's only found in this little tiny strip, which is why it's so important. Maybe you don't know what good a little tiny Brea is, but it's part of Newfoundland, right? Like I said, I call it the true Newfoundlander because it's been here since deglaciation, and it's like found nowhere else, right?
Yeah, deep roots, low to the ground.
Deep roots, low to the ground, keeps on trucking, right? So yeah, and it's very tenacious. Limestone is pretty interesting because there's not many areas on the island that is limestone. So a lot of the Northern Peninsula is actually underlain by limestone, but most of it is forested. So the question is always, why is there this little strip, as you can see along here, that isn't forested? Well, I think today gives you a good idea, judging by my hair, that wind is a really important part of why those limestone barrens are barrens. That means exposed. These barrens were part of a tropical sea, which most people don't know. So you get these nice gravel strips, and they're maintained mostly because of this wind that is whipping all the time. We have all these really neat plants that are found in what we call this hotspot of biodiversity. So we have, it changes all the time, but we have several hundred plants here that are found in other places, but are relatively rare. And then of course, the real stars of the show are the rare species that we have. So 2 species of Brea and Barron's willow.
And these are officially on the
endangered species list of Newfoundland and Labrador, but also the Species at Risk Act for Canada. Much of the damage that happened was what I call historical, right? So in the old days, they were quarrying before we even knew they were here, right? So we didn't have environmental protection laws. They were quarried in the 70s. Nobody knew they were here. So now the problem is more around what we call biological problems. So things like non-native tiny little moth called a diamondback moth. They tend to have impacts in certain areas. They'll eat their leaves and then they eat their little seeds and things like that. And that's what Jeff keeps track of for us.
So the first thing with chicks is to see the herbivore damage done to the leaves. So you can see right here, look, chewing in that dog.
Okay, if I get closer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're all chewed. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way we mark them is the percentage of the damage. So how many leaves are chewed? For this one, is 40% chewed. So this will be a medium. 50% will be high.
How sensitive are these plants? If I stepped on one?
Well, it'd flatten them pretty good.
Okay.
We have something here that's found nowhere else in the world that there was, for most people, it was like this instant show of pride. And we had a lot of local community groups and individuals who actually volunteered their time to help us. They came alongside, helping us to get the messages out, participating in workshops, other community events. We've had tours come from all over the world, Japan, the US, Europe, and we've had local people who come just to see this plant that's found nowhere else in the world. Yeah.
One of the interesting things about Longs Brae, as we talked about, is that it has very localized distribution, right? So like 5 or 6 kilometers along this strip of the ocean, nowhere else in the world. So it was, the recovery team thought that we needed to ensure that this location was kind of brought back because it's such an important location for Longs Brae. What we did is we had the heavy construction guys come in here and take those big humps away and then scrape it down to the limestone and then try to reimagine what the landscape looked like and make these ridges. So if you look, you can see there's kind of ridges. It's a little subtle now because of course the limestone quarrying would have taken a limestone away. So we tried to get it back as best we could, and so that we could replant those species to mimic what it used to look like.
I think it was captured quite clearly by a group of elementary school students when we did one of our stewardship signings. And they did a skit and they talked all about the limestone barrens, and in conclusion they said, it's our responsibility. So I would say the same today, that it's my responsibility, it's your responsibility. Every user that comes to the barrens, it's their responsibility to ensure that these barrens, these special plants are protected for present generations.
More disturbing accounts are emerging from the outskirts of Kiev after the Russian forces withdrew to the north. In places like Bucha, Ukrainian officials are not just dealing with the discovery of corpses around the town, they're also clearing explosives from the recaptured areas following the month-long Russian occupation. Katie Simpson has those details along with personal experiences of some who fled their town to Lviv.
Bucha may have been liberated, but it is far from safe. Ukrainian soldiers have collected more than 1,000 explosive devices. These will have to be disposed of before those who fled can even think of returning to what is left of their home. The bodies of at least 300 people have been recovered so far, including 60 at a church.
Part of the people were probably Ukrainian ex-military or law enforcement, so they handcuffed them and executed them.
Natalia was trapped in Bucha under Russian control for more than 2 weeks with no power or water. She too saw a mass grave as she fled the city, along with scenes of hopeless desperation as described by an interpreter.
She saw how bodies of people stay in the central place, and a lot of people decide, I don't know, maybe this is my brother, maybe this is my husband.
So people would be out in the main square?
Yes, in the main square.
And they would see bodies,
yes.
And they would wonder whether they knew them or they
yes.
were related to them.
Yes.
And that. What was it like to go through that?
And Russian soldiers said, you cannot take this body.
Valery escaped Bucha with his wife and 2 kids 2 days after the war started. He's barely slept, and there's been little contact with friends and family back home. That is, until he saw this news report on social media. That's his good friend waving hello. Temporary relief faded quickly as his friend described nearly being killed.
He said that Russia soldiers take a hand, put on the ground and won't fire.
So his friend was, the
Yes.
Russian soldiers
Yes.
had
They
him
put
on the ground,
Yes.
and they shot beside him.
Yes.
To honor the dead, the wounded, and this country's suffering, a few hundred people gathered in Lviv's main square for a moment of reflection, a moment to come together.
Despite the violence, despite the loss and the destruction, attitudes here are not changing. When you talk to people, they insist, they believe their country will prevail. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Lviv.
90 years ago, this angry mob stormed the Colonial building.
We take a look back at the long and winding road of getting the building open to the public that's just ahead. Anthony, it's a fascinating piece of history. On this day, back in 1932, thousands rioted outside the Colonial building in St. John's, outraged and out to get then Prime Minister Sir Richard Squires.
Yeah, certainly a famous chapter. A lot's changed since then, but what to do with the Colonial building? Well, that debate has continued for decades. So we're dipping into our archives tonight, going back nearly 20 years when the broadcast's Todd O'Brien brought us this report on that controversial landmark.
In 1932, rioters were out for blood. Not happy with the government, Sir Richard Squires narrowly escaped with his life.
Waiting for the jobs that never turned up.
And who can forget Joey Smallwood and the debate over entering Confederation? Built in the late 1840s, the political history of Newfoundland played out in these rooms. It houses the provincial archives these days, but soon the archives is moving to a new cultural centre, the rooms. The provincial government is now deciding on what to do with the building, but isn't saying exactly what. St. John's City Councillor Shani Duff is chair of the city's Heritage Committee.
I did try to find out if there was another concrete proposal that would have been available for review, and I could find lots of people who felt that there was, but nobody who had actually seen one.
The city is supporting a proposal by the Association of Heritage Industries. It wants to preserve the building, keep it open to the public, and use the office space for heritage groups. The Department of Tourism says there are 2 other proposals, but isn't saying what they are. Former high-ranking justice and government officials who don't want to talk publicly say they know of one proposal. It comes from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Clyde Wells. Wells wants to move the Court of Appeal here to build a glass atrium to house the court and its offices.
I think that would be a misuse of the building. This is a provincial historic site.
Fitzgerald says people in the history community are upset with the idea of a courthouse.
These buildings have merit in and of themselves in their own right, and every school child in Newfoundland and Labrador should be able to go in there and be told the stories and told the history of this province and the evolution of government and society, and they should be able to see the original thing.
An official in the Department of Tourism said the minister couldn't be reached for comment, but says the government will decide later this month on what to do with the Colonial building. Todd O'Brien, CBC News, St. John's.
All right, Todd O'Brien, nearly 20 years later, and the Colonial building still isn't open to the public. It's been undergoing renovations for about 12 years.
Yes, there is hope that it may be opened in time for the summer as part of the province's Come Home year.
Yeah, and then anyone who comes home, we can all get comfy on some of those 4 custom-built couches that were bought. Remember those?
Yes.
At $130,000.
Right.
They're lovely. They match the decor. I mean, you can't just put IKEA couches or lazy boys in there,
No,
right?
for sure, for sure.
Well, it'll be a nice couple of days to stay on the couch for sure. Temperatures are going to be a little bit cooler. We're looking at that onshore flow, which means gray skies are going to continue, and we can thank that area of low pressure offshore for that. So this is Wednesday evening as we head into Thursday. Going to continue to see those unsettled conditions with the potential for flurries and or showers through a good chunk of the afternoon. And again, like I said, those temperatures really not moving too much over the next couple of days. Should hover between 3 and 6 degrees across the island. It'll cooler for the northern peninsula, same thing for Labrador, but temperatures should generally be near or a few degrees above 0 for you right through the afternoon on Thursday. Temperatures, skies will stay generally gray for you with the potential for some flurries. Now, as we head into Thursday evening, Friday morning, the area of low pressure will finally start to pull off a little bit further, which means we'll see some relief from the winds. But a ridge of high pressure is going to move in. Likely not going to see too much in the way of sunshine, likely not clear skies, but we will see a few peaks of sun in the mix through the afternoon. But our next system will move in fairly quickly right behind it into the evening hours on Friday, and eventually we'll see that make its way towards the island as well. So temperatures will start to warm up a little bit, about 3 to 5 degrees, a little cooler for St. John's, about 1 degree through the afternoon, and then temperatures across most of the big land should hover above 0 through the day, with again that snow moving in for Lab City into the afternoon hours. Now, a big warm up on the way as we head through the weekend into the middle of the weekend. Taking a look, 3 degrees by Saturday with rain moving into the evening hours, but by Sunday temperatures should climb up. We may see some peaks of sun. We may see temperatures within a degree or two of this, but they are generally going to warm up, and we'll certainly see that through central and western portions of the province as well. That similar double-digit temperature looks like it should stay dry. Definitely going to have to keep an eye on that forecast, but the potential to see some sunshine through the day on Sunday. However, the first half of the weekend will be a bit rainy, 6 or 7 degrees with some showers. Now for Eastern Labrador, you're looking at a nice break on Friday, but as we head through Saturday and Sunday, the flurries will return. However, temperatures will stay above zero. Overnight lows will dip into the minus single digits. And then Western Labrador, more in the way of light snow on Saturday, and then flurries will return for you on Sunday. Now, this was certainly a winter wonderland. Walter Fleming shared this photo with me. Wow. This is the curling walking trail. He also said, I said 16 centimeters of snow a little bit earlier, but he said it looked like way more than that fell. Where he was. So
I want to run through that with my arms up and just knock all the snow off the branches.
That's a great
what a canopy.
picture. Yeah, no, it's a great shot. Thank you so much, Walter. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yeah, it's quite pretty.
Beautiful.
It is a great shot.
So you look at that and you say, oh yeah, winter's coming to an end, right?
It is, right. Eventually.
Well, we certainly have the nice mild temperatures. I'm looking forward to Sunday. It sounds like hopefully that will stay.
Hopefully that sticks around, yeah. It's roller coaster, obviously, this time of year. We see the warm up, the cool down, but at least the snow doesn't last very long.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for us on this Tuesday evening. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.